MLB DFS picks Sunday, June 30th. What pitchers intrigue me today? We'll start with this showdown slate. Bailey Falter. How does he keep getting away with it? Well, there's a decent explanation. So he does have a 354 expected WOBA, not the true WOBA, but that's what's expected to happen. His skills interactive ERA, pretty high, but in the end, he still has a 4 ERA and he doesn't really strike anybody out. How does he do it? Well, just a fly ball pitcher that doesn't give up too much hard contact, and the fly balls typically find gloves. And so, if we look a little bit closer, we'll see that his BABIP is pretty low, and that's generally what we see from fly ball pitchers who have limited the home runs to a degree. His day could be coming, but he keeps getting away with it. I still don't think I would mind stacking Atlanta against the lefty. On the other side, I like Spencer Schwellenbach a lot. Double A, top prospect, got called up because of injuries, but really it wasn't too much of a rush job to get him up there. Had a couple tough matchups to start. His last outing wasn't the greatest. Believe he gave up 4 earned runs. We'll look on the sheet and see what the sheet says. And the sheet says, yeah, he gave up 4 earned runs. He did strike out 6 batters, but his xFIP in that game was 162. So he pitched pretty well in his last outing. Had a good game before that against Detroit. This is a soft matchup. If you're playing the showdown, Spencer is the way to go. I don't think I want the Pittsburgh bats. All right, main slate, Ranger Suarez. Stud this year. Huge favorite against Miami, as he should be, because we know Miami not very good. Miami versus lefties. They don't strike out a lot, but look at that ISO. It's below 100. The WOBA is 259. The WRC plus against lefties is 65. They have been cold of late with really poor numbers. Now you might look at Ranger and say, well, that last outing, not very good. 8 hits, 2 earned runs. Really, though, only 2 earned runs in that outing, so not terrible. Actually, I think he had 9 hits and 4 earned runs before that. So last outing actually against Detroit was 9 hits and 4 earned runs. But in that game for Suarez versus Detroit, he had a 230 xFIP. So if you're reacting to his most recent game, yes, the traditional line looks bad, but a 230 xFIP in reality, because in that game, most of those hits were ground balls. He had a 81% ground ball rate in that game and a 409 BABIP. So he wasn't getting smoked for home runs or doubles. It was just bled to death. A 409 BABIP, 81% ground ball rate, just a 55% strand rate in that game. He was striking people out. He was making his pitches. It's just that the ground balls were finding their way through. Then the hard contact was a little high, but I'm not going to overreact to, oh my God, they're hitting a lot of hard ground balls. Ranger Suarez is fine. He should crush Miami. Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer. I'm always talking about Waldron, and I'll say it again. What a unique pitcher he is. He's not just a one-pitch knuckler. He's got a diverse arsenal that really frustrates hitters. That's why he is putting up really awesome numbers. 343. We are far enough into the season now that it is for real. A 23% K rate. Not the highest, but still pretty good. But more importantly, they are not squaring anything up against him. 29% hard contact. He's actually getting a decent amount of ground balls for a knuckleballer. Last outing, 8 Ks. Matchups never matter with the knuckleballer. I will note, though, that Boston hasn't faced him yet. So this is their first time, and I think I would rather, if I'm picking Waldron, I like taking the first time against his team. If he's faced a team before and they hit him, then I might be a little bit worried about the way. Again, I am too biased toward Waldron, so if you don't want to play him, that's fine. But look him up, do your own research. I love the kid. Patrick Corbin's interesting. I know you're going, what? Patrick Corbin? Yeah, well, Patrick Corbin typically was a guy we would always stack against, and there will be times again. But I think the first thing that you should, hone in on is Patrick Corbin is pitching in a game with a 7.5 total. I know his expected WAR was 395. He doesn't Look at the ERA. He doesn't strike people out. It's not good. He's not good. His hard contact's kind of up there. Yeah, but first of all, it's in Tampa. And we know that Corbin, some of his struggles over the years have been home runs. This is not a home run park. This is not a home run team. So we've got the park upgrade for the pitcher. And we've got a team that against lefties strikes out 25% of the time and lacks power. They do produce runs, but Tampa is not a team that scares us. We look at Corbin in his last outing, just 3 earned runs, 7 innings pitched. And you really look at what Corbin's doing this season. I'm not saying he's a changed man. I'm not saying he's a new guy, but his last 3 starts have been pretty good. And he really has been decent since the end of April. If you go all the way back, he really has just 2 really bad outings. One was against Minnesota. That's a very good team, and that was a really bad outing, but it's Minnesota. The other was against the New York Mets. And as we know, the New York Mets are really good against left-handed pitching. Other than that, since the end of April, if you've been stacking against Corbin because that was the thing, it ain't working. So I definitely would not stack Tampa. And at 5,500, I do not think it's completely absurd to consider him if you absolutely need the savings. I know it's crazy, but it's something that you might want to look into. Taj Bradley, wow, this kid looks great. So some of you might be saying, well, the reason why the run total is so low is because Bradley's pitching. It's not because of Corbin. Sure, that is part of the case, and Bradley has been absolutely phenomenal. 338 skills interactive ERA, a 30% K rate. What are we talking about? Does have a significantly high hard contact rate, but one of the things you're going to see with pitchers that strike a lot of batters out, they have less contact. And so when you just do the percentages, whereas a pitcher that pitches to contact more is probably because they have more contact, going to have a lower rate. Now, that's not completely always the case, but still. The reality is with Bradley is everything checks out. We'll talk a little more. 11.1 Ks per 9 to put it into perspective. Pitcher's ballpark. We are really excited about that. We like the matchup. I know that Washington doesn't strike out a lot, but that's fine. Bradley will find ways to strike them out. They can't hit. They haven't been hitting. His last outing, he struck out 8. My other notes on Taj are this. Number 2 prospect. His splitter is allowing a 205 WOBA, and that's his main pitch right now. He's just developed it this year. Changed from the changeup to the splitter, and a 205 WOBA, a 195 X WOBA. He's getting it for a 90% called strike rate as well. And also, if you look at his cutter, which he also uses a lot, his fastball is just okay. But the splitter that he just developed this year has led to his breakout. Also, the cutter has made a huge improvement this season. When they look at, I think, horizontal movement on his cutter, it ranks in the 99 percentile. Actually, I said called strike for the, that's right. So 99th percentile movement on the cutter. So his baseball savant stats, everything looks elite for Bradley in a good matchup. You love playing Bradley here. I think the strikeouts, although we don't see a lot from Washington, he will absolutely get them. All right, let's go back. Who are we looking at next? And I got marked in Freddie Peralta because it's Freddie Peralta, and he's facing the Cubs. So there's really nothing I need to explain here. We know what he has done. His numbers actually could be better. 31% K rate. Obviously reflected in 3.2 Sierra. Swinging strike rates there. We got a 25% K rate for Chicago against righties, just a 98 WRC plus, and they've been striking out a lot over the last week. Don't think you really need to overthink playing Peralta. Believe he's coming off a pretty solid start. 6 Ks, 5 innings. Like to have seen him go deeper. It wasn't the easiest matchup. I think they were playing the Padres, maybe. Flipping on down. Garett Crochet, another young stud. This will be probably his first full season if all goes well. Tommy John surgery last year. doesn't seem to have been a problem. Everybody gets the old Tommy John and comes right back and is fine. Seems like, I don't know, like the easiest surgery in the world. A 244 Sierra, a 250 X-Woba, 35% K rate, huge swinging strike rate, also getting the ground balls. That's the key here. We talk about several pitchers over the last couple days and what makes them special. Like I think with Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty is striking out a lot of guys, not walking guys, and getting ground balls. Garett Crochet, for another equally weak AL Central team, striking them out, not walking them, and getting ground balls. What more could you ask for? Sure, the park's not great, but that's where Garett Crochet pitches every time, and he still puts up really good numbers. So we don't worry about the park for Garett Crochet. And we also love the matchup against Colorado, out of Colorado. Hell, Colorado in Colorado, they can't hit. 24% K rate against righties. ISO a little bit higher, but again, that's probably inflated by Colorado playing in Colorado, and they really aren't even that good there. 92 WRC plus once you start adjusting for parks, etc. And over the last week, Colorado striking out more than they ever have, not hitting at all. Crochet in his last outing, 6 innings, no earned runs, 5 2/3. We love Crochet. Another stud pitching against a poor team. Do I have any other notes on Crochet this season? I do not. But you know the story. Hunter Green. We know he can be the Hunter Green strikeout machine facing St. Louis. St. Louis, not a good offense. Didn't do anything on Saturday. Didn't do anything on Friday. I don't think they've really scored hardly any runs against the Reds this entire weekend. And it's pretty obvious when you look at that lineup. 24% K rate against righties. 146 ISO. They are plating runs, but they are not a good team. And they've been cold over the last week. 88 WRC plus. No power. Hunter Green, not so great in his last outing, 6 earned runs, but that happens for a guy that pitches in Cincinnati. And the thing I want to note is, and this has been true of his entire career, but if you look this year at his splits at home, Hunter Green, a 4.76 ERA. When Hunter Green gets out of Great American Ballpark, where the home runs don't get to him, he has a 2.59 ERA. Hunter Green, 2.59 ERA on the road. The batting average against is almost half of what it is. His home run rate dips by half. So you love Hunter on the road, and we also like him in a decent matchup. Joe Ryan is Joe Ryan, having another terrific season. 332 Sierra, 26% K rate. Not as high as some of the other guys that we like Peralta and Crochet and Taj. But he is facing Seattle. Although Seattle does score runs and they do win games somehow, they also will do you a favor and strike out a lot. 28% K rate against righties. WOBA below average, WRC plus below average, ISO below average. Not a good offensive team, striking out more than ever over the last week. The strikeouts are there for Joe Ryan. I don't know how Seattle's in first place. They are somehow. Not a huge run total here. I guess, obviously they're pitching, and just because they strike out doesn't mean they can't score runs. But I don't think they're going to score runs against Joe Ryan. And then last on the list is Brandon Fat. Fat man, or Fat boy. He's still young. He's still a prospect. He is the number 2 prospect for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ks are up, and we like that for him. So there is that K upside. And you go through his game log, there have been games where the Fat man has struck out plenty of batters. Not the greatest strikeout numbers on the season, 21% K rate. Doesn't scream strikeout pitcher, but in the right matchup, he has been able to K batters. He is limiting hard contact. Hasn't been bad. He still is a young developing pitcher. Number 2 prospect. Now, one of the problems with him is that on the season, he's got a 3.95 Sierra, 4.45 ERA. It's been about a 5.11 ERA since the end of May. So he has struggled a little bit. and he is not consistent as you would expect from a rookie pitcher. But in a matchup against Oakland that strikes out 27% of the time, low WOBA, low WRC plus against right-handed pitching, Fat Boy could have a pretty good game. Went 6 1/3 in his last outing, 2 strikeouts, did give up the runs, but it was only on 5 hits. So he's pitching pretty well, at least as well as you would think from a young prospect developing. And he's definitely someone you would consider when he gets into good matchups. And obviously, if he's a minus 196 favorite, you're going to like that. But obviously, keep saying obviously, one of the reasons why you like it is because Luis Medina is pitching, and Luis struggles with control and just gets into jams constantly. Just doesn't put together good efforts. So you could stack Arizona. You could also consider stacking San Francisco against James Paxton, who his advanced stats do not look good. Somehow he is winning games, and I don't know how he's doing it, but he is doing it. Regardless, he's 7-1 in the year, but he's got 238 BABIP. His xFIP's 516. His actual ERA is 339. He's been very fortunate. He keeps getting away with it. Well, he's facing a team that is very good against left-handed pitching. This could be a bad day for James Paxton. I don't think you'd stack San Francisco, but I definitely believe you'd want to consider playing a handful of the bats if you can get a value on them. Next on our list is Milwaukee. Now, this is interesting because Kyle Hendricks is another guy. Like, is he getting away with it? 351 xWOBA. 425 Sierra. His actual ERA is 687, so he isn't really getting away with it. But you look here, he's getting a lot of ground balls, almost half. That's good. He's not striking anyone out, and that's a problem. But he is getting the ground balls, and he's limiting the hard contact. So he's going up there and doing what he wants to do. So let's look at his BABIP, and I'm pretty sure his BABIP is above 300. And that's bad news for – you typically will see that from a ground ball pitcher. Let's see. Where is Kyle at? We got 320. And he's not stranding anyone. Not getting out of his jams. But he is getting ground balls and limiting the hard contact. So you could make a case that, man, he could be all right. And in his last outing, he went 7 innings and only allowed 2 earned runs. And one of the things I'll note is that he really got BABIP'd early in the season. He was getting his ground balls, but he was getting like a 400 BABIP in each game. So he was just getting ground balled to death, and that was plating runs. But again, you got to find, if that's going to be your jam, then that's your jam. You got to deal with it. So he could get ground balled to death again against Milwaukee. If I had to pick a side, I would probably rather just take Milwaukee than any chance on Kyle Hendricks. How much is Kyle Hendricks, by the way? 7,100. I would not pay 7,100 for Kyle Hendricks. Now, if I had a Major League Baseball team and he's going to be my 5th starter and I have to pay him very much money, sure. But do I want him on my fantasy team? No, probably not. And that's pretty much going to do it as far as talking about what I am interested into today. So thanks for joining me. MLB DFS picks. Like, subscribe. Hopefully this was helpful information.